Welcome to the Melrose Unitarian Universalist Church. Our service today is called A Whole Healing and Broken People. All right, well, good morning. It's nice to see everybody. I am Jenny Grovius. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the president here at MUUC and your host this morning because Reverend Suzanne is still out on medical leave. It is a privilege to welcome our guest preacher for today, C.B. Beal. But before I introduce them, I do have one quick announcement this morning. It came to our attention that many of you were unable to access the Next Steps materials that we emailed to you, and we're so thrilled to share with everyone because there were issues with the website and accessing the documents on the website. So we are sorting out the issues with the website, but in the meantime, we will be sending out the final report summary and 2 articles as PDFs next week. So the full final report will continue to be available only through the members-only website. So please contact Felicia in the office if you need help accessing that area. And if you are interested in joining one of the 4 learning teams, please contact leadership or Kathy Sang, and we will connect you with the correct team leader. So, after that announcement, I am thrilled to welcome C.B. Beal back as our guest preacher today. We have a long-standing relationship with CB, and this is the first of 3 Sundays that they will be here worshiping with us. On February 19th and May 7th, CB will not only lead worship, they will also lead workshops after the services. So please make every effort to be here on those dates. It will be great. And then next week, our immigration ministry team will lead us in worship with an important update about their clients and their work. And let's give a quick shout out to our helpers today. Thank you to Usher Michael O'Connor and greeter Nancy Nichols. Thank you. Now, let's say hi to all our church friends far and near. So turn to greet your folks here and then wave to our friends on Zoom. Hello. Good morning. Yay. Oh, it's so nice to see everybody.
It's so wonderful to be back among you.
We can't hear you, CB.
Really? Let me say again. Can you hear me now?
Let's see. Can you test? Can you say test, test?
I'm testing. I'm trying to talk. You know, it worked when we tested.
We'll turn you up in the sanctuary. Just 1 second.
Okay, I'm just going to keep talking. Hello, how are you? I'm so happy to see you all. Any minute now, there's going to be sound right in the middle of a sentence, and that will be very exciting. So we know that it worked on Zoom. Maybe while he's working on that, you want to do the call to worship, if you can hear me. I wonder if the people on Zoom can hear me. Would you wave if you can hear me? All right, people on Zoom can hear me. So I know tech is on it. Tech is on it. We could sing a little song about how awesome tech is. We could sing a little song about how white supremacy culture tries to say that everything should be perfect, but we know that's not true.
Okay, we're good.
We're good? Awesome. I love having opportunities to prove that the perfectionism of white supremacy culture is just baloney. So thank you all. Good morning. I'm C.B. Beal. I'm so glad to be back among you today. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I call us to worship this morning with these words from Mia Birdsong, a writer, leader, and storyteller who points to people's lived experiences to inform institutional learning and transformation. Mia says, "We are all conditioned to try to move at the pace of a culture that is based in
CB, I am so sorry. We lost you again in the sanctuary. I am so sorry. Can you give us just 1 moment? We're just going to try one other thing.
Testing. So you guys can hear me fine, right?
On Zoom, we hear you fine.
Okay, CB, I think it might be the volume on your end.
Do you have an input volume?
Try now.
That's better.
Really? It was my fault all along?
No, it's not better. Oh,
It's
weird.
not better? Let me, I've got, okay, I made my mic automatic.
Yes.
Really? So, oh, look at you. So here's a clue. First of all, we learned this morning the new Zoom update forces my screen to go widescreen when I did not clean my house for widescreen. And now we know that it has to be automatically adjust volume. I love learning in public. All right, so let's start again, shall we? I am still C.B. Beal, and my pronouns are still they, them, and theirs. And I call us to worship this morning with these words from Mia Birdsong, a leader, writer, and storyteller who points to people's lived experiences to inform institutional learning and transformation. Mia says, we're all conditioned to try to move at the pace of a culture based in patriarchy, capitalism, and white supremacy, but not at the pace of love and humanity and liberation. And if you and I talk at the speed of liberation, I imagine we'll be less out of breath. And now together we light the symbol of our living faith, the flaming chalice. And here to light it and lead us in our covenant is Martha Borkin.
I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit and join me in the words of our covenant, which you can see on the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. This is our great covenant, one with another and with our God.
Please remain standing and join us for our opening hymn, number 102, which here we go. We the heirs of many ages.
This morning's story is called The Rabbit Listened by Corey Dorfeld. One day, Taylor decided to build something new. and something special. Aren't they cute? Something amazing. Taylor was so proud. But then, out of nowhere, things came crashing down. The chicken was the first to notice. Oh, what a shame. I'm so sorry this sorry this happened. Let's talk about it a lot. But Taylor did not feel like talking. So the chicken left. Next came the bear. Rawr, rawr, rawr. How horrible. I bet you feel so angry. Let's shout about it. Rawr, rawr, rawr. Taylor did not feel like shouting. So the bear left. Fine. Now, the elephant knew just what to do. I can fix this. We just need to remember exactly the way things were before. That's it, exactly the way it was before. But Taylor didn't feel like remembering. One by one they came. The hyena, the ostrich. Let's hide and pretend nothing happened. Everything's the same. Let's not have conflicts. Nope. The kangaroo. Goodness, no, what a mess. Let's throw it all away. Clean it up, throw it away. Yep. And the snake. Let's go down, knock someone else's. Taylor didn't feel like doing anything with anybody. So eventually they all left until Taylor was alone. In the quiet, Taylor didn't even notice the rabbit. But it moved closer and closer. Together, they sat in silence until Taylor said, "Please stay with me." The rabbit listened until Taylor could feel its warm body. And through it all, the rabbit never left. And when the time was right, the rabbit listened to Taylor's plan to build again. I can't wait, Taylor said. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for your good listening to my story.
Every Sunday, in the center of our service, we share a time of quiet contemplation, a moment for each of us to reconnect with our inner spirit. Let's begin by getting in touch with our bodies, feeling our feet on the floor, relaxing into our seats. Let's breathe in and out together, in and out. In this meditation time, first we'll join together in our centering song, then we sit for a few minutes of shared silence, and then we will speak to one another of our joys and sorrows, and then CB will lead a prayer. Our worship themes for January are finding our center and the fifth UUA principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. It's a time for each of us to affirm and cultivate our conscience, the inner point of connection that speaks to us in stillness. Let it be our compass and our guide. Our centering song for the month is number 90 in the Gray Hymnal, From All the Fret and Fever of the Day. Lyrics will appear on the screen, and Tom will lead us in singing. So join in as you like, and let the song guide you gently into our shared silence. It is our practice here to share with one another the milestones of our lives, our personal joys and sorrows. We speak and listen with care so that sharing may strengthen the bonds of community. First, if folks on Zoom have a sorrow to share, please type it into the chat box now and I will read them aloud. And if folks here in the room have a sorrow to speak, you may come forward now. Okay, so we have none in the room. In the chat, Jean T. has a candle of sadness for her brother John, who lost Jeff, his very best friend for over 30 years, after a sudden and short battle with cancer. Jeff will be missed, and I am thankful for Jeff being my brother's unofficial other sibling and for their longtime friendship. Thank you, Jean. From Lisa Wilson Wright, a candle of sorrow for the loss of my Aunt Tina the day before her 61st birthday. Let us take a moment together to hold all these sorrows in our hearts. May those who are hurting today know our love and support. May we reach out with kindness. So Michael, if you would light the gray candle as a beacon of care for all the sorrows spoken and unspoken today. And now I ask for all the joys you'd like to share. So folks on Zoom, please type into the chat box and I'll read them aloud. And then folks here in the room, if anyone has a joy to share, you can come forward now. We're all quite zen and in the middle here today in the sanctuary. If there's any chats, I'll just wait a moment to see if anyone on Zoom pops up. Oh, here, perfect. Lisa Wilson-Wright also has a candle of joy. She says, a candle of joy that my mom is home from the hospital and healing well, and for John, whose kidney is functioning well. Excellent news, yes. A candle of joy from Reverend Suzanne. She said, joy, I am down to using only one crutch. That's great. And Jean Tay, happy Chinese New Year, the year of the rabbit. Lucky people. And then I would like to light our candle of joy for CB joining us again. They are such a wonderful, wonderful presence here and a person that we are all very fond of. So I'm very, very pleased that CB is here again. Okay, so thank you for sharing these joys, which help to connect us and remind us all of the beauty of living. And so now Michael can light the other candle to shine out our thanks for all of the many blessings in our lives. And now CB will lead us in prayer.
Please take another breath together. Feel your body solidly in the chair or the pew which holds you. Breathe and be mindful of your breath, of your body, as you are present with yourself and one another. Gracious God, Spirit of love and justice, our lives have been filled with moments when words escaped us. They sometimes would not come. They have also been filled with joy and pleasure. We witness one another here in our deepest pain, in our greatest joy, those spoken and unspoken. As Palaimakayo says, we are a whole, healing, and broken people in a whole, healing, and broken faith, living in a whole, healing, and broken world. We bear witness to the cracked and shattered pieces, and we begin to help heal what has been broken. We here witness illness and healing, strength and injury, love and despair, sharing joy and holding one another in our circle of care, knowing that the sacred, the pulse of the universe, that which we may call God, bears witness and is present with us as well.
This church is a self-supporting organization funded by your generous annual pledge. You may also contribute to our weekly collection plate, which we split every month with a deserving cause. Folks on Zoom can donate either way using the orange button at the top right corner of our homepage at melroseuu.org. For the month of January, to honor our 5th UUA principal, half of our collection plate will go to the Voting Rights Project of the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund. The project uses litigation and legislation to defend voting rights across the U.S. This morning's musical selection during the offertory is from Claude Debussy's book number 1 of Preludes, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair.
Our reading this morning are words from a reflection by Paloma Cayo in 2016. She was then a high school student at the UU Summer Seminary in Oakland. Our service title today is taken from Ms. Cayo's work. We are a whole and healing and broken people. We are a whole, healing, and broken faith. We are a whole, healing, and broken world. As youth and young adults, she says, we are constantly reminded of the inevitable fact that this is our inheritance. Our experience as young people at this pivotal time in the world does not pass peacefully or easily. One of the hardest questions we find ourselves asking time and time again as we do our work of faith and action is, where is my place? What can I do to help heal the pain I see? How do I inherit this broken world with grace? Because the truth is, we have been bequeathed a devastated world. How do I inherit this broken world with grace? There is so much resistance, so much pain to bear witness to, but we are tired and we are ready for change. The effects of this resistance and the avoidance of bearing witness can be seen clearly in our own congregations. Soul is being drained. Oppressed identities are still living unseen. Stories are going untold. And pain is being met with a solution rather than an empathetic listening ear. What we are trying to do as we inherit this broken world is to rebuild a sanctuary, a place where there is a space to sit in discomfort, to accept your pain, to acknowledge mistakes made and humanity and the lives lost because of them. Because only when we come to bear witness to the cracks and shattered pieces can we begin to help heal what has been broken. We are a whole, healing, and broken people. Our duty is to lift up voices and listen deeply to stories, both joyful and painful. We are a whole, healing, and broken faith. Our call is to celebrate, empower, and affirm the sacred. We are a whole, healing, and broken world. So let us bear witness to this difficult truth. I'm going to take another breath. I'm so happy to be back. Like, you have fondness for me. That was the sweetest thing to say, but I have so much fondness to you. People are like, where are you preaching? I'm like, Melrose. I'm so happy. And I'm so happy I'm going to be with you in person for the next 2 sermons and workshops. I want to provide a content note about today's sermon for those of us present who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. As always, I will be telling stories on myself during these sermons. And today's sermon is about privilege, particularly the kind of privilege that our systems grant people who are understood as white. I will be talking in the first person about those of us who are white and just some of what we fail to understand about systems of privilege and oppression, some of what we were never taught. I am today centering white people for the purpose of exposing the system that promotes and privileges whiteness. And another breath. Is it ethical to steal bread to feed your starving family? Think about that for a minute. Is it ethical to steal bread to feed your starving family? The first time I remember this type of ethical imagining question was 6th grade, when I was asked about a boat in an ocean that was going to sink because there was too many people. And unless they threw somebody over the edge, they were all going to die. There were 10 people in this exercise, and the exercise described all of the people. Someone was a doctor, someone was pregnant, someone was elderly, someone was a farmer. I noted that the pregnant and elderly people did not also have a career or skill set noted. We were supposed to decide who we would throw over. This was the ethical question given to us. We, from a position of sitting in our seats in a 6th grade classroom in the renovated bus garage, not in danger at sea, though many of us were in danger at home. We didn't talk about that. We were not being exposed to a real threat, but to a hypothetical one. We were asked to make an ethical decision from hypothetical rather than real circumstances. In my college philosophy 101 class, we did the same thing again. This time, the question was, would you kill someone to stop them from killing someone else? Imagine you are a person in a huge room. You are up on the balcony, and down below, someone is imminently in danger of for sure getting killed. The only intervention available to you, you realize, is that you could cut the cord on the chandelier, which would fall and drop on their head, the bad guy's head. I kid you not. This was philosophy 101, first day. There's imminent danger. In this imaginary circumstance, you have the ability to stop them, but if you do, it will kill them. I must say, this is an ethical dilemma I am unlikely to face in the real world. The question, is it ethical to steal bread to feed your starving family, is a very particular question. In fact, all of these questions, detached from the lived reality of the people who are asked them, are based on the belief that we ourselves are not the vulnerable ones in this story. We have enough privilege, we are protected enough that we will not actually face, do not actually face these particular sorts of life and death questions about which we should hypothesize. Now, privilege is a tricky term. Chances are, up at the top, when I first said that word, many people had some kind of reaction. People always have a reaction to that privilege. Oh, is this going to be another one of those? Is a frequent one. So I want to clarify that what I mean by privilege isn't that a person is privileged. We often find people talking about privilege as if it is about an individual person, but rather privilege works by conferring a benefit onto a category of people. A person then is covered by privilege only if they are perceived as part of that benefited system. Stephanie Wildman and Adrian Davis wrote, privilege is systemic, not an occasional occurrence. And privilege is invisible only until looked for. And silence in the face of privilege sustains its invisibility. What we do not say, what we do not talk about, allows the status quo to continue. To describe these unspoken systems means we need to use language. But even when we try to talk about privilege, the language we have been offered and that we can use inhibits our ability to perceive the systems of privilege that constitute status quo. Just using the word, we're back to me now, just using the word means everyone has an idea what that word means. And from there, we start having a conversation that may not be the same conversation. So I invite you all, for the purposes of this conversation, this sermon, privilege is not what we have individually. It's a system that covers us when we're part of it. I think that it is privilege that keeps us asking the questions and answering questions within our own framework. Is it ethical to steal bread to feed your hungry family? How come in these exercises we're never asked, is it ethical to hoard bread while other people are starving? That would be a question that reaches to most of our lived experience. Most of us don't have lived experience being so hungry and having no money and no friends or family with money or extra food to be able to feed our kids for a couple of days. We might be short on money, but not poor. We might be swamped with debt, paying off our car or our house, but we own a car and a house. Why isn't the ethical question, is it ethical to hoard bread when other families are starving? Now, one of the things I think happens when that question gets asked, the way I just asked it, is that many of us, in our heads, we go immediately to the practicality involved and whether or not it counts as hoarding and not just stocking up for a blizzard, and how we're responsible for having enough bread for ourselves and our families in case of a crisis. We go almost immediately to personal responsibility for our particular household. As people, most of us raised in Puritan individuality bootstraps culture, this is to be expected. The prioritizing of taking care of ourselves rather than collectively caring for a community, all of us. That's part of the setup. And that thing our brain did, finding special reasons that a little hoarding is okay, that's not even the question. It's an ethical question. Is it ethical to hoard bread while people are starving? A broad statement that's not about me and how much food I have down there because it's a pandemic. And I'm not going to answer that question today because it's not the point. The point for today isn't to grapple with a particular question. It's to try to figure out when we are asked these questions or when we ask ourselves if they're the right questions in the first place. How do we know they're the right questions? And how do we know we have enough knowledge and skill and experience to know the answer? How could we come forward to these kinds of things and say, who would know more than I about this? Where might I turn for input and information? I was taught in 6th grade that I had all the brains I needed to argue that question and be right. So seldom did teachers say about anything, I hope you will revisit this question when you're older and you have more information. It's an interesting kind of idea to return to as you grow. No. I've been honest with you all and told stories on myself that I was raised to believe that I knew everything. I knew the right answer to everything. I was really smart. Yay me, right? I haven't here with you, though, addressed the complexity of being raised to believe that I had intellectual prowess, but I was a failure as a person. That's a whole other thing. And I want to mention it because none of us are only one thing. My brain was good, so it went, and my behavior, impulsivity, fidgetiness, inability to sit still or keep my mouth shut upset people, and that meant I was bad. So I was smart, but bad. I should be quiet and stop bothering people. Sometime maybe I will talk more about that complexity because none of us are without complexity. But here's the thing. Just because something is complicated doesn't also mean it's not true. Complexities of our family life, religion, class, and more are part of our individual stories. But in this moment, we're talking not about our individual selves, but how systems of privilege work, how a system provides the very framework within which we might not even know to question the perspective of the questions we ask. Never mind the answers. The things we perceive and the questions we have about them are based on our own experience. This is not unsurprising. And if our own experience does not involve marginalization or overt oppression in a particular way, either by personal experience or by significant learning, it's not really possible for us to think outside of our own perspective. Part of being a whole, broken, and healing people is willingness to listen, learn, and accept new information from outside our own experience and perspective. This gives us the capacity to think and reflect as broadly as our faith calls us to. Just like in the story today, when someone tells us about what happened, we often respond first from our own inclination. The bear wants to yell in anger. The ostrich wants to hide and avoid conflict. Kangaroo wants to clean it up so it'll seem like it never happened. What Taylor needed, and I believe what each one of us need, is for people to hear our stories without imposing their own. This is different from listening to people while they tell us what they think for an hour, because it's not primarily about what we think, but what we experience. So what does this have to do with privilege? Being whole, healing, and broken people means I have to be clear about my own story, both what I claim and what is imposed on me by the social and political systems that impact me, so that I can be mindful of when I leap in to yell or hide, or are more likely to clean up something or tell someone else what to do to fix it. I have to be able to notice when I'm doing that. Remember, I said I was impulsive, right? As a child, I learned about United States history the way most of us did, from what they taught me at school and what I learned from TV shows. In 1974, at 12 years old, I knew these things to be true. Slavery was a terrible thing, but it ended a long time ago. Black people hadn't been allowed to drink at the same water fountain as white people back when I was a kid. But the civil rights movement fixed everything, and now everyone can vote. That's what I had been taught. That's the sum and total of it. When I was 12 years old, deep in those 0-degree Adirondack winters, I was in the back kitchen one day. It had an old-fashioned wood cook stove that was the warmest spot in the house. I spent as much time there as possible. The front kitchen radio was on to NPR. Now, let's be clear. I was not an intellectual child. It's not like I'm the one that turned on NPR, but it's what was on in the house. Usually it was WIRY AM radio telling us the local news stories about hoodlums and the nearby big city mayor. They were usually not the same story. Usually. I heard a story describing the system and structures of apartheid in South Africa, and my 12-year-old self was appalled that white people as an entire country could just decide that Black people had to live somewhere else and couldn't get good jobs or buy good homes, that they were legally separate from everyone else. I had never heard of apartheid before and did not understand US segregation in those terms. I was 12. The world was still pretty much divided into good and bad without complexity. And I had been raised to believe that we were the good people. Even though there wasn't ever a statement that it was white people who were the good people, because I was raised by parents who thought we should all just be colorblind and believe in equality. Nonetheless, I internalized the idea that I and my people were the good guys. So when I found out this was happening in South Africa, I couldn't believe it. It was so unfair. It was wrong. That winter, I spent hours with my feet up in the oven of that wood stove with our Montgomery Ward catalog on my lap, with a pen and a paper, putting in an order, a long list to outfit an army to go rescue the Black South Africans. My plan was I'd buy shelf-stable sausage and cheese. This was conveniently available since it was the Christmas catalog. Sturdy boots, thick socks and jeans and jackets, rifles and knives, green tents, and heavy-duty sleeping bags for my army in South Africa. I was so poorly educated. In school, in nursery rhymes on television, I had learned all the derogatory names we weren't supposed to use for people who weren't us, mixed in with the images that supported that those people were less than worthy, less functional, less good. The invisible part was said quietly in people's minds, less functional than we are, less good than us. It was privilege that meant I could grow up knowing all the bad names that we weren't supposed to say. All the myths about Black folks, the stories about wrongdoing, cartoons about ignorance, being sheltered from the reality of my own country meant that when I found out finally about something that was obviously racially oppressive, it was all the way around the other side of the world. And then my reaction was to go save them. It's privilege that allowed me to not have to know about racial privilege and oppression, that allowed me to not have to think of myself as a white person, but to just be able to think of myself as regular. It was Black folks, Native American folks, other people of color, and gay people who were different. That's what I had been taught. We were just regular. This is part of what we mean when we talk about who is centered. It is a privilege to be perceived as just regular. Part of the story that we were the good people, the smart people, was that my youthful response was not to ask, how were oppressed people fighting apartheid? I did not ask or wonder if what I thought was true about America actually was. South Africa was far away, and I thought that what I would do is go save them, literally. My play that winter involved thinking that it wasn't fair to segregate and oppress Black people, but also I had already, at age 12, I already had the cultural notion that I could save them. My culture taught me that I was the good one. I was the one to save people. Not that they'd save themselves. Now, again, with the complexity, there was this. I was raised as a girl child, and so I was socialized to care for everyone around me. And as a fundamentalist Christian, I was told it was my responsibility to help save people to Jesus. So those things are also true. But just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's not also true that my culture taught me that the white people are the good people. We now are more able to talk about the idea of white saviorism. And I can't help but realize how deep it goes in our psyche that even as a child, I played at that. I could have played at, I'm going to go to South Africa and join a rebellion. Maybe I'll be a spy like Harriet the Spy. That's my favorite book ever. They'll know what they need and they'll give me a job. That'll be very exciting. Honestly, Harriet the Spy, my favorite book in the history of ever. I had a spy belt with spy things on it. I'd spy on the cows. I'd climb up in the hayloft and spy on my dad and my brother when they were working. But that wasn't my template for this, for the play for this. I was going to be the general of an army. Now, there's no shame in this. It's just noticing. It was not my fault that I was surrounded by a Puritan culture, a culture based in white supremacy, patriarchy, and extractive capitalism. That I was granted a clueless ignorance that I did not ask for or even know about. In the next two sermons, I'll tell some more stories about my young adulthood and even today, about how this uninvited privilege impacts my life and others. It's a true thing that sometimes as we start learning about this, we feel badly. Sometimes discovering that we're not as independent in our thought as we thought, that we all too often replicate what we were taught decades ago without noticing, that we're not as right about most everything that we thought can be really painful. For some of us, the ways it tangles up with childhood messages about us being bad or unworthy for other reasons is complicated. With family structures, religious structures, nothing is uncomplicated. I'm going to say it again. Nothing is uncomplicated, but that doesn't mean that we get out of learning about the things that are complicated and learning about our place in those things. We start learning how incredibly much we have been taught that was untrue, and how much truth has been held away from those of us who are white. And this is also true of other forms of privilege. Those of us who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color are harmed by the systems that create white privilege and oppression, and may also be privileged by gender, sexual orientation, ability, class, education, and many other things. As nothing's uncomplicated. The piece, The Whole Healing and Broken World by Paloma Cayo came to my attention when I first heard the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt reflect on it. Sophia said, Paloma's piece challenges Unitarian Universalism to become sanctuaries where telling our full stories and engaging with one another's healing alongside one another's pain can guide us to a new way of being. Paloma says that only when we come to bear witness to the cracked and shattered pieces can we begin to help heal what has been broken. So when I draw on Paloma's voice, says Reverend Dr. Betancourt, it leads me to say that our first principle calls us to learn a language of resilience and liberation in response to the pain of the world that we have inherited, so that we might find wholeness and grace in our own brokenness. A Unitarian Universalist theology of liberation in the present day centers our capacity to be sanctuaries of radical truth-telling and abundant compassion, so that the all-embracing love at the center of our tradition can serve to make every one of us more full. The ways I've moved through my life, cluelessly injuring others, people that I did not want to hurt or injure or cause any harm or discomfort to, but did, because my culture, Puritan culture, a broad culture that is based in white supremacy, patriarchy, and extractive capitalism did not provide me not only with the knowledge, but the tools that I need to live my life with the kindness and justice that I intend, that I believe we all intend. Our Unitarian Universalism affirms that no matter where we are in an experience of being whole, broken, and healing, we are worthy. Our broad culture, based in those other systems, does not agree. Those systems have provided us with lies and misinformation about what it is to be whole and who exactly is broken. This, my people, is a huge challenge before us. Uncomplicated does not mean untrue. It just means it takes longer. It's going to take careful curiosity, listening, and reflection to sort this all out. One book study a month or one conversation we had that one time is not going to sort it out. It's an ongoing commitment. We are whole. We are broken. We are healing. And a great part of that healing is to be willing to be rabbit in today's story, to listen instead of cleaning up, fixing, reacting, or raging. Willing to be present, simply present, when our personal inclination is to take over. We must be willing, one small piece at a time, to be braver and to be willing to tell bits of our stories in safer spaces that have intentionally been set up for bearing witness and learning from one another's experience. We're all broken. We're all healing. We're all whole. Let's get more whole together. Amen. And blessed be. Would you please rise now in body or spirit and join me in our closing hymn as tranquil streams. It's 141 in the gray hymnal and up on the screen.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless greed, free from a social bond that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic Church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Please remain standing and join me in our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. The chalice missed its cue. It went out early. So our service has ended. Please enjoy a brief postlude from Tom before gathering in Parish Hall. And friends on Zoom can stay in the main room to chat. So thank you all for worshiping with us today.